I love events. Let me rephrase that. I love going to events. I love being part of events. I don't love organizing and trying to put on events. I've discovered, in spite of all my years working in nonprofits and doing so many events, I get stressed out when I'm the one in charge, which has also given me a tremendous appreciation for those who do organize and manage events. And we're going to be talking to somebody today who is fantastic at it. So put on the brakes, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation because it's time for Coffee Breaks with Steve. Well, welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. I'm Steve Glavin, and this is the show where we come together around our virtual coffee table each week and join the conversation to chat about interesting topics with amazing guests. If you're joining us for the first time today, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. This looking Carla is here. Rick is here. All right, good to see you. And I hope you're have had and are having a great week. Ours has been... We've been kind of winding down from a very busy season, a very busy month or so with family in town, with celebrations and activities. The last of our visiting family, our grandsons, Remy and Jameson, left yesterday, took them to the airport yesterday evening. And it's an adjustment for me because while it's always great to kind of get back into the more typical schedule and things quiet down a bit, it almost in the first few days it seems too quiet to me, right? Have you been in that situation where family is visiting? Maybe for you it's nieces, nephews, or grandkids. When it's the younger generation, particularly, there's so much energy. Sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming, and I need those moments where I just break away from it. And then when they leave, I'm immediately at a loss. So we had a great time with all of the family this summer. I'm sharing a couple of things here in a minute, but it was good. And for me, it's weird because then after that, I have to remind myself summer's not over yet. Still got a lot of things that we can do, a lot going on. The weather hopefully cooperates. Yesterday, we were under a severe air quality alert. We don't have any fires around us right now, but there are some major fires all around the Pacific Northwest. We're in eastern Washington. There are fires in northern Idaho, across the border from us. There are fires in central Washington. There are fires in southern part of Washington, in Oregon. And if you open up the map that shows all of these, it's awful. It's terrible. And my heart is out there. My prayers are there for all of the people who are being affected by it right now. And there are thousands. But for some reason, night before last and then all day yesterday, the smoke from some of these fires, we were just right in the path where if you walked outside, in fact, you didn't even have to walk outside. I got up yesterday morning and I thought I caught a hint of smoke, and then went outside, and for the entire day, it was so hazy that you couldn't see more than probably a quarter mile, if that, if you were driving down the road. And in fact, we were getting alerts saying it was hazardous, bordering on dangerous. So we did limit our outdoor activities yesterday. Fortunately, it appears to be much better today, but still concerned for so many who are impacted by this. Hi, Kathy. Good to see you here. All right, listen, limited amount of sort of pre conversation today. Didn't have a lot for sweet and savory, but a couple of things that I did want to share because they were kind of fun. I mentioned that we were wrapping up our activities with family over the last week or so. And the last big thing that we ended up doing, when some of the family was still in town, about half the family had already had to leave. And in fact, this was something that was postponed. It was supposed to take place when all the family was in town a couple of weeks prior, but weather actually restricted this, and it got postponed. But something that Shalane and I have been talking about, my youngest daughter, Shalane, have been talking about for quite a while. And I turned 70 in June, and Shalane just turned 40 this last week. And so we thought, with both of those milestone birthdays, what do we do to really celebrate big time, something very unique? And we decided that we talked about it again for a year or more, that we would both go together to do a tandem skydive. And so last Sunday, we went to Ritzville, which is about an hour from here. Family came to watch, those who were still in town. And this was my second tandem skydive. I did one about 2.5 years ago in California when I was with Sabre 6 Foundation. And this was for Shalane a bit of a challenge because she has some issues with her ear canals in her ears that causes her, for instance, she goes on a commercial airline flight. She has issues every single time. She's tried a variety of things. Doctors have prescribed things, but she still ends up with severe pressure and pain in her ears. So she was very concerned about doing this, but she really followed through with it. And I don't yet have, she has video of her actual skydive. I only have a little bit of video from the perspective of my instructor who had a camera on. Her instructor had a camera strapped to his wrist, and mine had a camera strapped to my wrist. And so we've got some photographs that she already uploaded. There's me in the midst of the free fall and apparently enjoying myself. But I'm going to show you a little bit of video now that represents what you're going to see in the first part of this video is from the perspective of my tandem skydive instructor. Shalane went out early. Shalane went out earlier than we did. And so you're going to see from my instructor's camera, Shalane and her instructor getting to the door and going out. If you listen very carefully above the noise of the airplane and everything else, you're going to hear Shalane laugh as they go out the door. Hopefully the audio will allow you to see that. And then that's followed by my departure from the plane in free fall and a little bit of being under the parachute canopy taken from my instructor's wrist camera. So take a look at this. Yeah, that was crazy stuff. That was some fun, very fun. You know, you have these unique moments, and quite frankly, they really are unique. How come he has a helmet on and you don't? I know. So Kathy's asking, so why did Shalane jump out of the plane? Well, a couple of reasons. One, that's, you know, if she hadn't, she would have gone to a higher altitude. She jumped from a slightly lower altitude than I did. So she would have continued to climb, which could have contributed to more pressure on her ears. Why did she jump out of a plane? Because she wanted to challenge herself to do it. Yeah, it was an interesting helmet. Why do the instructors get helmets and the guests do not? There are a couple of reasons for that. I can't tell you specifically why the instructors have helmets, other than it's common if you're doing for most of them, it's a safety thing doing a solo skydive. Most of them had helmets on. And I think the issue is if you both have helmets on, there's a much bigger chance with how close you are, you're going to be whacking helmets together and stuff. I don't know for sure. I had goggles on for the free fall portion, and then once we were under canopy, my instructor took my goggles off, which was helpful because it gave me a much less distorted, clear view of all of the scenery. And it was about, I don't know, probably about a 45-second free fall. I don't know how long. I'd have to look at all the video to see how long it took us to get to the ground. I mean, we went out of the plane at 13,000 feet, and I think they opened the parachute at 5,000. And so, you know, you get a bit of time with that. Was my co-jumper a superhero? He might have been. His name's George, and he was fantastic. I really appreciated him. He was very engaging through the whole thing. But anyway, we did have a lot of fun with that. Hey, listen, I did not have any birthdays or anniversaries in my calendar this week. So if you have a special day this week that you want to make sure we celebrate and acknowledge with you, can you put that in the chat, please, so that we can do so? And if you have one coming up later, in the coming weeks, in the coming months. You can send us an email to cbwsteve@comcast.net, and we'd be more than happy then to put your special day in our calendar so that we make sure when the right week comes along that we celebrate that with you. Always want to have those times. And listen, I want to get to our guest conversation today because it's a lot of fun. Our guest today is Melissa Millour, the founder and owner of BeYOUnique Events in the Tampa Bay area. A Florida native with a degree in resort and hospitality management and certification as a professional wedding and event planner, Melissa has worked with premier hospitality brands including the Ritz-Carlton, Marriott, Omni Hotels, and the Don Cesar. Inspired by a family that valued both creativity and precision in addition to serving, she brings an artist's eye and a planner's expertise to every event, transforming her clients' visions into unforgettable experiences. Please join me now in welcoming Melissa Millour, and please join the conversation. Melissa, welcome to Coffee Breaks with Steve. Thank you for taking the time to join us.
Yes, of course. My absolute pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
I would love to know what some of the early experiences were in your life that sparked an interest in event planning and in bringing people together.
I think it's an amazing question. I think I have a pretty unusual story as far as, finding this career field and this passion, just because I found it so early on. So I was about, 16, 17. Remember watching the movie The Wedding Planner with Jennifer Lopez. And I thought to myself, well, she's Puerto Rican, I'm Puerto Rican, at least I have that part down. And then I started seeing the little different characteristics that she was exhibiting in the movie. And some of it was the OCD tendencies, and I realized I have the same OCD tendencies, but not only that, but something beautiful about putting an event together. And so I think after taking a career test in high school, actually, number one result was event planner. So I was like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. It makes sense. I do feel calling to that. I did have a quinceañera because I'm Puerto Rican, and that really started my love for events. I realized the impact that events have on people, and just seeing my family members from Puerto Rico fly in to Florida and seeing my school friends, seeing my soccer teammates all kind of in one area was bizarre, and yet it worked. There was this kind of energy, and people really loved being with each other, and both sets of my grandparents were talking like old friends that they are. And so I just kind of was very observational in that aspect. And that's kind of what started my interest in event planning. And I did go to school for it and all that. So, I've really planned out my life. Go figure, an event planner plans their life that early, but that's kind of how it all began.
Going back even before that, was there, growing up, were you already the person who was like organizing the gatherings, decorating spaces, planning celebrations, even as a little kid? Was there something that even led to that path earlier?
In a way, yes. I would say my father is actually a copper artist. So I grew up kind of going to the studio with him and his predecessor who would teach him the copper art techniques. So I think I have more of an artistic background than anything. So I started really, I was a very artistic, child growing up. And I knew that was a part of me that gave me peace and kind of gave me a sense of like, I can be abstract. I don't have to be so concrete all the time. So that art background and seeing people working on their craft in the studio and then seeing the gallery nights, which only happen once a month, is when they put it all on display, and watching them talk to people about their artwork and the concept and why they did the things they did. Just really being exposed to that at a very young age really kind of set the tone for what an art piece looks like and how it can evoke emotion. And there is a concept behind it. There's intention behind it. And I was very involved in my local church, actually. So we did events all the time, Oktoberfest and things like that. My parents were always very involved in events around the community. So I was always somehow involved, whether it was cooking empanadas or selling or just helping out here and there and setting up something. And And so that part of me has always kind of been ingrained. It's just that you help because you have the hospitality spirit, and my family is very hospitable. We're used to hosting celebrations. We're always the house that had a celebration for something. And those are the memories that last throughout life. And I've realized that I've carried the most positive memories that I've ever had come from an event. So I think in a way, yes, I was artistic and I was organizing things without realizing it. But I knew that everything had its place. So even in my room, if I had something in some place, I was always going to put it back in that place. And so with events, you kind of have to be organized in that way and structured so that everything you're putting out kind of goes back in, and then you wrap it up and then go to the next event. So I was always like that. And I was also very introspective. I was very curious. I asked a lot of people questions. I lived in St. Petersburg in a time that it was mostly a retirement community. So I had a lot of people to ask questions to and learn from. So I think that, curiosity kind of lends to events as well. It's like, why are we hosting events? Why is it so impactful? And just asking deeper questions at a young age.
Your company name, BeYOUnique Events, which we're showing it here on the screen right now so people can see that unique spelling as well. What's the story behind the name, and what does the name itself represent to you personally and professionally?
So also a great question. Actually, no one's ever really asked me that. So I'm always, that's something that I think about when I think of the name is, I came up with it in college, actually at university. So while I was going to school for event management, I took a class and it was called strategic management. And one of the tasks was to create a business plan. So that's kind of actually where my business originated, was that class and that task. So when I was at work, I was an event coordinator for a Marriott property, Sanibel Harbor Marriott. So it's going to be right outside of Sanibel Island. I was at my desk. I had to be glued to my desk because I was answering all the phone calls. So sometimes I had a moment to jot down ideas and things that came to my brain. I love wordplay and I love puns. I'm a very punny person. I love cheesy jokes. It's kind of who I am. So I was just kind of brainstorming word plays that I could do as a business name and concept. And I thought of unique. I did know that I wanted unique as part of the name, just because I realized, like art, a masterpiece is only a masterpiece if it's original. And I wanted to create events that were original because I saw there was some kind of niche there, because some people, when I interviewed them about their weddings or their events, they were like, it was done during the mason jar period of time, right? So there's a time for certain types of events, and I didn't want the events that I created to be stuck in a time. I wanted it to be timeless. And the only way it was going to be timeless is if it's unique. If it's something that's completely unique to the company, if it's unique to the couple, if it's unique to the individual, then it's never going to go out of style, because really your personality doesn't change that much over time. It does, it evolves, but you'll always remember who you were in the moment in the event rather than the time period that you had the event. So I knew unique had to be some kind of aspect, and being you is everyone's unique, and that's the superpower that everyone has. So I wanted to celebrate that, and that's something that's kind of where I started brainstorming. What's a wordplay I can do with unique, and being you? You is the root word of unique, right? So it was a doodle on a paper while I was at work, and then I took it back and worked on my project and my business plan, and it took me 8 years later to actually start it, but I always had the name picked out from an early age.
When you're putting together your own business, it can be it's kind of a roller coaster journey, right? It's exciting, but yet there are times when you're going, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Can you share just a little bit about some of the biggest lessons and challenges that you faced while building your business and building your reputation in this industry?
Yes, I think event planning, for any event planners out there, they can probably relate. But event planning and event management and having event management companies, it's very competitive to be hired by them. So at the time that I wanted to gather experience, because I always knew I needed to have a few years under my belt, I needed to have professional experience to be the best event planner and designer that I can be. So I was looking at event management companies, and if I couldn't find any job positions available, what I ended up doing is getting hospitality industry experience. So I worked in hotels and luxury hotels for about 8 years, and being in luxury hospitality settings, it's very demanding. It's very high stakes, and I started at the, a very beautiful boutique hotel in St. Pete. It's called Don Cesar Hotel. And so that was my first job. So being in a 4-star property as your first job, you can imagine the training that goes into it. And I loved the demand, the high demand. I loved that you had to deliver exceptional service for people, because I come from a hospitality background. That's who I am inside. And you kind of have to have that spirit to be able to work in an environment where you welcome people. So I then went on to Ritz-Carlton in Naples, and Ritz-Carlton Naples Resort is one of the only 5-star hotels in the country. And that's a very tall order because you get audited all the time. You had to be almost perfect, really. They trained you to really have professional verbiage. You had to welcome guests a certain way and all that. So I think really with all that being said, I worked in hotels. I was a food and beverage manager. I was an assistant banquet director at one time. I have been a regional event manager, so I had to go to different states and put on events. I've been an event planner for a nonprofit organization. So you really start gathering all these skills and things from, especially food and beverage. I'd say that that's probably the most pressure cooker of a job or industry that you can be, because you have to think on the fly. And I realized, being in the banquet side of things, I wasn't doing the planning part. I was just kind of executing what I got and received communication-wise. So that made me a better communicator now, where if I'm delivering information to a different vendor, it's kind of like delivering to a different department. So the more information I can get for them, the more I can set them up for success, the more success that we all have, and then the more happiness that the guest is going to feel and feel cared for. And so really, with all the experience that I got, it helped me begin my business. And the challenges that I faced was really, it was actually during COVID, because the hospitality industry, as you know, no one was hosting events. Everyone started going virtual, or they just didn't have a need to travel at the time. So I was working in a hotel at the time as an assistant banquet director, and I got furloughed. And I thought to myself, maybe this is a good time to start my business in Texas. And I was living in San Antonio, Texas at the time. My husband was in the Air Force. And I quickly realized it wasn't the right time to start, with people not meeting in person. And not only that, but my husband being in the military, I wouldn't know where I was going to end up in the year. And that's just not really a sustainable business model or a time to launch a business. So after purchasing my name, actually, initially, I decided to hold off on it and just kind of pivot. And once tourism started opening back up, I just worked in hotels again. And once my husband separated from the military, I took that as my cue to finally start and launch BeYOUnique Events. And so there were a lot of challenges initially, because the economy and just the state of the world was so... It was a strange time, wasn't it? It was crazy. COVID was, you lose your job and you have to kind of pivot and do something different. I was a group fitness instructor and barista at that time after that. And I just take every single skill that I can get from any job I had so that I could be the best business owner that I can be.
What are the things that you think of off the top of your head that people most often misunderstand about event planning? And along with that, what really goes on behind the scenes to make an event successful?
That's a great question. And that's something that sometimes my potential clients ask me is, what's the benefit of hiring BeYOUnique Events, right? And it's a great question to answer, because I think the biggest misunderstanding that people have about event planners is really time as a commodity. It's a commodity and it's precious. And to plan an event, regardless if it's personal or for your company or for your wedding, right? The time that it takes to research into other companies that will deliver the same level of service that you deserve and want and desire, it takes hours and hours. And not only that, but the communication has to be seamless, right? And so I think a lot of people have misconceptions about event planning as like, oh, it's the day of, that must be so glamorous, it's so nice, it's wonderful. And they don't realize that really a majority, 80% of the job is behind the computer or out and about meeting other vendors. So it's really a lot more of the logistical side that people don't realize, that event days are just like when the cake comes together, right? And the event masterpiece finally comes together. You're working diligently on it for months and months and months. And then when the day happens, you get to really follow this set script and guidelines so that by the end of it, you can breathe and be like, that was amazing. It happened. And to some people, it's not fulfilling. Frankly, it's one day, right? Or it could be a 3-day conference or anything. And afterwards, you're like, why did I spend so many months on that? But really, for me, it's most fulfilling because I know that people, the memories that they create at events last a lifetime. And people don't really remember the day-to-days as much, but they'll remember events because that's how much intention was behind that one day or 3 days. If it's made with intention or planned with intention or designed with intention, it's going to impact them even greater.
Do you think the ability to be a logistician and manage all the pieces, the administrative stuff, is the most important? Do you think the people skills are the most important? Or do you think it's just a balance between the two?
That is a very good observation, really. I think it's a balance of it all, right? And I think people forget that in event planning, there's also an artistic process, right? And I touched on that a little bit, but when something's designed as well as planned, you can tell, right? So if you walk into a corporate event and it's just, you have the tables and chairs and people sit down, they watch speakers on the stage, and it's just very plain and simple, they're not going to remember it as much as something that's interactive. Maybe they can interact in something, a goal setting at the conference, or maybe the colors are vibrant and they match the brand of the company, and you can see the brand in the 360. If you were to take a photo and think of that, then I think that's important. Is also deals with logistics, right? So you have to logistically plan that in order to design effectively, right? So I think my biggest thing that's the most important is marrying the logistics with the design. And I think some people just stick with logistics, and that's fine and all, but it just won't have the same strong impact that it can have on the guests when they arrive. You want to think about the 5 senses, right? Like I think about, what are they smelling? What are they seeing? What are they tasting? What are they touching? What are they hearing? And I want to make sure that that whole experience is experiential, right? People can interact with it, touch it, it's tangible. It's something that they can walk away and feel like, wow, I smelled lavender at one point. I don't even know why, but smell and, just a sense of smell actually lasts longer than any other senses. So if you don't really consider the design of it and the intention behind events, and that goes with logistics and leading into design. So I have to reach out to the right vendors that can put the colors that are within the brand. I have to communicate the mood board and the vision so that everyone's on the same page. And so really they go hand in hand. So you have to have a balance of both. And sometimes you'll have event planners without the design, but what's unique about BeYOUnique Events is that we can do both. And the artistic side is just as important as the logistic side, and not everyone can kind of, stick with the mission, right? And the goal and the objective. But I have that logistician brain of mine that says, okay, don't veer too much into this crazy ether that's artistic, right? We have to go with one direction, go with it, and you'll see it all on the day of why the intention is so important.
Do you have any, maybe one great story about a time when something unexpected happened during an event and how you handled the situation in the moment?
Absolutely. I talk about this one story with my husband all the time. My husband actually, in the first event that I planned with BeYOUnique Events, was my helper, right? So on the day, he was with me, and the first event was a wedding, and it was after hurricanes have hit Florida. So it was a displaced wedding. And I said, I'll take it. I'll help. I'll do whatever I can to help you with your wedding day. And it was good because I needed some start, right? And that's the hardest part, just start. And so in that first wedding, and it was completely out of my control what happened, but the wedding went smoothly. I was feeling good. We did the design exactly what the bride wanted, and just start to finish with the flow and the timeline, it was all working out. But in the last hour where everyone's dancing on the dance floor, I saw the bride and groom and a few bridal party members rushing to the elevator. And as the event manager and the wedding planner and coordinator on the day of, I'm overseeing everyone. They're all my responsibility. So I followed and realized that the father of the bride collapsed in his room upstairs in the hotel. So that, as you can imagine, I am like, well, I used to work in hotels, so at least I know kind of what the policies and procedures are. So I went to the front desk and I said, just stand by there. You might have to call EMS, but I need to check on the father, see if he's okay. And it was crazy. I have to tell you that, Steve. It was nutty with a capital N-U-T-T-Y. It was, you go up and the son of the son and the brother of the bride is just, screaming and everything. He's not alive. And so I went into the room, and sure enough, the father was out cold, wasn't breathing. And in the moment, I just thought, what can I do? And what can I control? And how can I help? So I got all the family members to actually take a few deep breaths, and there was someone doing CPR. Thank God the bridal party were all EMS nurses. And so it was a blessing for sure. And so someone was doing CPR until EMS arrived. And as you can imagine, it was a very emotional, shocking time for everyone. I gave many people hugs saying you could do what you can do. And you probably saved his life. Later that night, I learned that he coded 4 times on the way to the hospital. And he was coded when I was in the room. So as you can imagine, I go back downstairs. I told the bride and groom, don't worry about a thing. I'll pack up everything. I'll put everything, nice and neat in your room. I followed up with the bride and groom the next day. The whole week, just to let them know that, he's in our prayers, and whatever is happening, please keep me updated. I'm here for them. I know that this was something that was an unexpected event that happened, and a miracle actually happened. They were very close to releasing him, and he woke up and was completely fine. No brain damage, nothing. He was all right. To this day is alive and breathing well. But as you can imagine, that was my first event with BeYOUnique Events. And so I remember just feeling like, you know what, if I can do that, I can do anything. So thinking about crazy stories, that is, wow. I think a story can beat that for me personally. And I hope, that's the case.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What gives you the greatest sense of fulfillment? An event ends, and now you're reflecting on it. And I know there's a lot of things that go on after an event ends, including the fact that, sometimes you just want to collapse someplace. But when an event ends, what are the things that give you the greatest sense of fulfillment and feeling like it was successful?
I think just seeing the guests and the clients' faces just as they leave, and feeling like, even though it might not have gone exactly the way they wanted to, or maybe they found an unexpected, amazing, positive energy that they never expected to have. I think seeing their smiles and their sense of like a breath, and seeing them just smile after, and realizing like, this, we did it. We've done it. We've done the best we could, and there was something to take away from this event. There's always something to take away, but I think I really try to bring the positive energy, and I think energy, as long as it's paired with intention and constant communication, it's just nice to see the client just take a deep breath and just feel relieved, but not only relieved, but like, okay, when's the next one? Thinking, I love hearing that. And I love hearing guests saying something about the event. Oh, wow, this was amazing. This was just, I didn't even expect that. And just the constant chatter that goes along with guests as they leave is something that makes me feel like I've done my job right. And not only that, but if the client is happy, I'm happy. So I really view people as people, and I view them as friends, and I get to know everyone very in an intimate level, and so I think I can't wait for the next one, and I call them up and I let them know, what my perspective was, and I like to get their thoughts, and that gives me such a sense of fulfillment, just to see the event come together and to see everyone enjoying it. And you can tell, it's just, there's just an energy in the air, and you know that it was successful. It's going to leave an impact for the rest of their life, maybe. So that's what I aim for.
I want to change gears just for a moment here, because early on in our conversation, you mentioned something you in passing. You mentioned soccer team, and BeYOUnique Events is not the only thing that keeps you active and busy. You are also a semi-professional soccer player. Can you just take a couple of minutes and talk about that part of your life?
Yeah, sure. So I actually began playing soccer when I was 4 years old. So I have two older brothers, and I saw them playing and I wanted to play myself. And soccer is so special to me because it's not just a game. It's more than that. It's taught me so many life skills. I'd say even in BeYOUnique Events, like I know the importance of teamwork, and I know that communication is a huge part of it, right? And in soccer, is such a high pressure game, and it's very athletic, right? It's very disciplined. You have to have discipline. And even playing at the professional level, I played overseas in New Zealand for a little bit. So I know what it's like to have discipline, to treat your body right, to take a moment to sleep. And, everything kind of goes in hand with everything. So it kind of goes to the basis of being human, really. And then being on the field, you have to treat your teammates with respect. You don't have to like each other, but you have to treat each other with respect. And we have a common mission. We have to, we have a goal. We have an objective. It's very competitive. You learn how to lose. I think that's the biggest lesson that I got out of soccer is, like, sometimes you don't win every game, but there's always a lesson to be learned. And you can always learn and improve and just get better and better, as long as your mind is open to realizing that. And I feel like wisdom is acknowledging that you don't know everything. And even to this day, since playing when I was 4 to now, I still don't know everything there is to know about soccer. But it's such a near and dear part of my life that I do apply it to my business, in the sense of, you have to be a leader. And I've always been a kind of leader in the capacity of being like a captain of a team. And I know that people need to be motivated. I know that they need a sense of accomplishment. They need a sense of someone who cares about them on the field and off the field. So yeah, I'm glad you asked. I mean, soccer is a part of me that a lot of people, even in my industry, don't even know, but I balance both semi-professional soccer and my business. So I train at 6 a.m. in the morning and sometimes in the evenings, and I try to plan everything accordingly, and it so happens that I can still do both. So I'm very blessed and grateful, and I'm going to Germany next month with my teammates to play some professional teams. So very, very excited for that opportunity too.
I know you are domiciled, located in Western Florida, but for people who may be, what is the region where you provide your services? What's the geographic area that BeYOUnique Events will cover?
Yeah, so I always tell people I'm based in Florida, but I can do events worldwide. So I do love traveling. I've traveled to many countries, and including, Thailand. I've lived in New Zealand for a time period. I've done events over there. I do plan weddings and events in Puerto Rico as well, because my family's there. And I always tell people you don't need a passport. So go ahead, go to Puerto Rico, plan an event there. It's wonderful. It's beautiful. We love having people there. So yeah, I don't really have a specific limit to where I can go, because event planning can be done remotely. And usually when the day of the event or the days of the events, I can travel to and put the event together and get the local, artists in that area together to create a unique masterpiece.
And so if people do want to get in touch with you, find out more about BeYOUnique Events, find out a little bit more about what you do, where can they locate you and where can they contact you?
Great question. So I do have my website. So if you look at the spelling on the screen, that's going to be important, because it's www.BeYOUniqueEvents, but with a Y-O-U in place of the U in the unique. So you can reach out to me there at BeYOUniqueEvents.com. I also have my email address, which is my name, melissa.millour@BeYOUniqueEvents.com as well. And we do have an Instagram page, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out wherever works best for you.
Well, Melissa, I want to say thank you very much for taking the time to join us and for sharing so many interesting aspects of event planning and your own personal story. Thank you for what you do, truly making, as you mentioned, an impact in people's lives that is lasting, and wish you all the best as you continue both your event planning and your soccer career.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time to learn about me and BeYOUnique Events and even soccer.
All right. I just mentioned at the outset of today's episode, I worked nonprofits. I've worked with nonprofits and in the nonprofit arena for better than a quarter century, and I have been at times responsible for putting together events. Even prior to that, there were situations, some of them related to church and other places where I've been involved, and I've discovered, I can logistically put things together. I don't. Some people, like Melissa, get very energized by putting on events, even the chaos that sometimes accompanies. And when things don't go right, how do you get into that? For me, it's just, I just go into stress mode. Even the events that have come off seamlessly that I have been responsible for planning and organizing and implementing, I don't come away feeling, there's always a sense of relief. There's a sense of accomplishment, but it's one area that I just really don't enjoy and don't feel that I do well in. And so I have tremendous respect and appreciation for Melissa and people like her who I know, who I've worked with, who do this and do it so well. So Melissa, thank you for what you do. And thank you again for joining us and sharing so much valuable information, so many interesting stories. I want to just let you know what's going to be coming up. We got a lot of things in the pipeline, but I want to let you know what's happening next week, because this is one that was in the works for a while, and we expected to actually be sharing with you a month ago. And if you were with us, or you may recall, that particular episode of Coffee Breaks got hijacked on that day deliberately by my family, because they threw me a surprise belated birthday party, and they took over the show in order to kind of kidnap me and get me out of here and on the way to the party. But we did want to share the episode featuring a real mermaid Sandy. And so that's going to be on next week. Carissa will be here. Carissa was the one who actually held that conversation with Sandy, and she's going to be here to co-host with me. And we will bring you that episode next week. You want to be here. It's a lot of fun. Are there topics that you would like to see us discuss here and be part of the conversation? Are there guests you would like to see us bring on to Coffee Breaks? You can send us that email at cbwsteve@comcast.net. Let us know your ideas. Introduce us to people who you think would be great guests on this show. We look forward to that. That's a part of how we continue to build on this idea of sharing these topics and guests. They're so amazing. And by the way, do you know, if you may already be tuned in there right now, but do you know that we also have a YouTube channel? Many of you are here on Facebook. It's where a lot of the conversation takes place, but we also both live stream and record on YouTube. And that's how we get people like Melissa and these topics that we discuss, so many amazing guests, out to a much broader audience who can benefit from being a part of the conversations in that arena as well. If you are not yet a subscriber, would you please go to our YouTube channel? It's easy to find, and hit that subscribe button and like the videos, like the information that we put up there. That's going to get it out in front of a lot more people. If you are already a subscriber, would you please do me a favor, do our guests a favor, and share the YouTube channel with others you know. We can continue to build. We have added subscribers to that channel recently. It's continuing to grow. But I would love to know that Melissa's message and what she is doing in her work can get out in front of so many more people. So help us out with that if you would be willing. And then I just want to take a couple of minutes here as we're wrapping up today. Each month, we promote and share information about a well-deserving nonprofit organization. And this month, the month of July, we are talking about the Valley Humane Society in Pleasanton, California. I'm familiar with them. I worked with them in the past. They are I call them the little engine that could. They're a smaller organization that has grown and continues to grow, and they really have made and continue to make an impact in their community. We have featured them on this show before primarily, and had their executive director, Melissa Millour, on this show to talk about that work and talk about animal welfare. If that's something that you care about at all, I would encourage you to look into their webpage that you see here, valleyhumane.org, and consider how you might be able to help them continue to make an impact and continue to grow. And just want to encourage that because they're a great organization and they do a great job. All right, listen, I want to thank you. We're running a little bit over time, not unusual for us, a little bit beyond what where we intended, but you stuck with us. I want to say thank you to you as well for being here, being part of the conversation. And one more time, thank you to Melissa Millour for being with us, and just so much enjoyed that conversation. It energizes me to know that there are people who get energized by and do such an excellent job with events. Listen, there's so many different ways that we can make an impact. There is so much that's going on in our world, and that's a concentric circle that builds out from your own neighbors to your own community, to the region you live in, to the country that we call our own, and to this world around us. There's so many different things that are needed and ways that we can touch. So please find a way to make a difference in your world this week. God bless you. Have a great week. We will see you next time on Coffee Breaks with Steve.